Hello everyone! Today is a lovely day for Guinness and also a lovely day for apple turnovers. So that's what we're gonna make. You probably have a random apple in your house, which is perfect. I know I do because I always think, yeah, I'm gonna eat apples and then I don't. So let's make them into turnovers. Amazing. So we got to get started with our dough. So we're making basically a pie dough, but it's going to also have cream cheese in it for a delicious tang, but also to help us roll it out and fold them over. So we'll get started with that. So in here I've got 1.5 cups of flour. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon brown sugar. You can also use white sugar. I just like brown sugar because it has more flavor. And then I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just lightly toss that in there so the sugar is incorporated. Easy peasy. And then to that we're gonna add 1/4 cup of cream cheese that's cold. And I've also got 1/4 cup of cold butter, but we'll start with the cream cheese. So using our fingers like we did with the scones, we're gonna pinch the cream cheese and rub it into the flour till it gets mostly incorporated. And this is gonna help us get a flaky texture. We're adding the cream cheese first so that it gets squished in before we squish all the butter, because we want to have some larger butter chunks, whereas cream cheese can get kind of worked into the dough. All right, that looks pretty good. So it's a little bit shaggy there, but mostly all of our cream cheese we've rubbed in. So now we're gonna add our 1/4 cup of cold butter. And this one you wanna leave in chunks. So you have little butter bubbles that melt and make flaky, delicious pie crust on our turnovers. All right, this is gonna take me a minute, so I'll be back in a second. Got all of our butter mixed in. If you see, we still have these bigger chunks in there. That's what we want. You don't wanna fully work it in or else it's not gonna be as flaky. So now we've got all that in there. We're gonna add some cold water. I've got 1/4 cup of cold water here. I'm gonna leave a little bit out just to start. We don't want it to be super wet, but we don't want it to be super dry. That fine balance. So we're just mixing it in. And you don't want to use warm water because it will start melting your butter and then you'll lose those beautiful chunks you had. Okay, this is what it looks like. So I'm gonna add in the rest of my water here. See how it goes. And then this dough we're gonna saran wrap, put in the fridge for about 1/2 hour or longer if you wanna make it ahead of time before we roll it out. Let's see here. Hands are sometimes easier. Okay, this is feeling pretty good. We got a little bit of dry bits, so I'm just trying to toss them in there. See how it squishes together. Maybe we'll dump it out on our counter. Awesome. Push that in there. That looks great. So I'm going to kind of squish this into a square and then flatten it a little because I want to roll it out into a square afterwards. So if you start with the shape you want, it's going to make it a lot easier. Beautiful. So I'm just going to saran wrap this, pop it in the fridge, and then get started on our filling. Our dough is chilling in the fridge, so we're gonna get started on our filling. You can do any kind of pie filling on this, or if you're feeling just like putting jam in it, that will be good too. We're gonna do apple pie filling, but the only thing with this is we wanna pre-cook it before it goes in the oven, unlike a regular big pie. So in a pan here, I've got 1 teaspoon of butter, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm gonna add also a pinch of salt. And then I've got 1 apple that I peeled and chopped, as well as about 1/2 teaspoon of grated ginger. I just have a lot of ginger, so I thought, let's put some in there. So I'm gonna pop that in. You can leave that out though if you are not a ginger person. So I'm just gonna saute this on a medium heat until it starts breaking down the apples and lots of juices come out. It will take a couple minutes. So I've cooked down our apples a bit. I also added in about a 1/4 cup of water because this is a very firm apple. It was an ambrosia apple. They don't break down as well. If you have a Macintosh, that'll work a little bit better, but just don't cook it too much because it'll turn to applesauce. Awesome, so to this mixture, I have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and 2 teaspoons of flour. I'm gonna dump that in, pop it back on the heat until it thickens, and then pop it. Okay, I cooked down the flour and the sugar in our apples. Just takes a few seconds because your apples are already thick. So it's thickened up there. I'm gonna pop it into a bowl, and then we'll just let it sit out while our dough chills, and hopefully will come up to room temperature. If you're trying to rush it, you can definitely pop it in the fridge, but it's quarantine. I've got all the time in the world. So I'm just gonna pop it to the side and we'll be back once our dough is relaxed. So our dough is firmed up now. I'm just flouring both sides of it, and we're gonna roll it out into a big rectangle. If your dough is really cold, it might be a little bit harder to roll. I just let mine chill for about 30 minutes, so it's not super, super firm. It's just relaxed a bit. All right, that looks good. Try to piece together any big gaps. And I like to just roll and then rotate, and that helps you get an even thickness all across. Awesome. So I want it just like about an 1/4 of an inch around there. So that looks pretty good. Then I want to cut these into squares, so I'm using my pizza cutter. I'm going to trim off these edges to make a nice clean rectangle. If you want to be super perfect, you can definitely bust out a ruler for this. All right, and then I feel like this could probably make 6 squares-ish. Well, they're a little wonky. So I've got 1 square. We're gonna put our pie filling in the middle. And I always want to overfill them because I love filling, but try not to. I'll put 2 spoonfuls in there, maybe a little more. We'll see. That looks good. And then I have our egg wash we made yesterday. So it was 1 egg with a pinch of salt and a pinch of sugar. You can also use water for this. I'm just gonna brush around the edges. And then the most closest shaped other piece of dough, we're gonna plop on top. And we'll just squish her around to stick. Or it's slightly exploding, that's fine. Then using a fork, I'm gonna press the edges together. All the way around like a Pop-Tart. Cute. Then with a knife, we'll give it a few little slits. And then onto a tray, a lined tray. We'll egg wash it. Again, all over the whole thing this time though. Whoop. Sprinkle it with some sugar, and then I'm gonna pop it in a preheated 350-degree oven for probably about 20 minutes. But basically until it's golden brown and yummy looking. Amazing, so I'll finish up the other ones and then we'll pop them in the oven. All right, into the oven we go. So these took about 25 minutes in the 350-degree oven, just until they were nice golden brown on the edges there. They're nice and golden brown at the bottom. And they smell like freaking butter. It's so delicious smelling. Well, that's everything for today. Our little apple turnovers are all baked and ready to go. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.